So as you know, the war is far away from India, but we are right in the thick of it.
Right, you are.
Yeah, because
Especially now with new Trump's administration.
yes, President
Yeah.
Trump, in a social post, he now wants Ukraine to attack Russia to win the war. So, would you say that this captures his frustration with President Putin and Russia's refusal to go ahead along with Mr. Trump's wish list to end the war?
I personally think there are two things. First, it's what Trump means when he sends these cryptic messages
Yeah,
that different people interpret in a different way,
yeah,
because he's not very clear when he expresses some of his thoughts.
yeah,
The way I interpret it, especially because it was referenced to Joseph Biden,
yeah,
Biden indeed had restrictions on how Ukraine can use American weapons,
yeah,
and they did allow at the beginning to use them in Crimea, for example,
yeah,
and they, God forbid, didn't allow them to use on other Russian sovereign legitimate territory.
yeah,
And I think this is what Trump meant. There was a big pledge from Kiev to Joseph Biden
yeah,
to give long-range ATACMS, the missiles that would destroy Russian military targets inside Russia.
yeah.
And Biden never allowed that. I think this is what Trump means, that Russia has the right to respond to Russian aggression on its territory inside Russia. So the second question you asked, whether this is part of the frustration
Yeah.
of Trump, that Putin is not willing to negotiate in good faith
Yeah.
peace, ceasefire and peace in Ukraine. I think yes, because up to now, Trump thought that he can play it very nice with Putin, be very kind to him, roll him the red carpet, and he will agree to end the war. But clearly, this is not the case.
So, what is, in your opinion, what is President Putin's, what is his game plan?
Well, if we are talking about Putin,
Yeah.
let's remember that this is a typical imperial war. Putin, it's his mission, and it's not just him, but Russian elite, that they want to restore Russian state as a great empire as it was during Soviet time and even during the Tsarist imperial Romanov's dynasty. This
Yeah.
is Putin's historic mission. It's not about one or two villages in Ukraine. He is waging, this is the last imperial power in Europe that did not give up its imperial ambition. And he already de facto colonized Belarus, has taken control over Georgia in a non-military way. He is waging the war in Ukraine. He is threatening Moldova. Right now, the country will have elections in September, and he is hugely interfering in the elections. He has ambition for Baltic states as we know it. So this is what Putin is about. Ukraine is just one, figure on his chessboard. He needs to have success in Ukraine in order to have this imperial power projection. And Ukraine, to be honest, humiliated Russia. That now 3 years they cannot take even one one mid-sized region of Ukraine, not to mention control all of Ukraine. Then this is why it's so difficult to negotiate with Putin, because Ukraine cannot give its independence to Putin. Trump cannot give Ukrainian territory to Putin. He doesn't own this territory. And Europeans understand that if Russia wins in Ukraine, it's a threat to them.
So, you don't think that Trump can force Ukraine to cede the territory that Russia wants?
This is also a very, what do you mean by ceding? Russia wants Ukrainian army to retreat
Yeah.
from Ukrainian legal territory so
Yes.
that they can take control.
Yeah.
I don't think this will happen. Can you imagine any country doing it? Can you imagine India giving its territory to China, for example, without a fight? Can Modi survive as the prime minister after he does it? It's the same situation with Zelenskyy. Another story is freezing the war along the current front line,
Yeah.
and Ukraine pledging not to, for some time, reconquer this territory militarily. For this option, if Ukraine is provided security guarantees, Ukrainians will agree, but Putin will not agree.
But can Trump, I mean, given Trump the amount that he's invested in ending this war, the lure of the Nobel Prize, with even Hillary Clinton saying he might win a Nobel Prize if he ends the war. Can he, because as you know, when Zelensky went to the White House, he showed him the map and of the Ukraine. So can he
Yeah.
compel Ukraine to agree to 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 Putin's some of Putin's demands?
No, he cannot. He cannot compel Ukraine to Putin's capitulation because Putin's demands equal capitulation of Ukraine. Ukraine has one of the largest armies in Europe. Ukraine is fighting a defensive war. Ukraine is not controlling part of Russian territory like it used to in Kursk region. So what that map was used by Zelensky to show Trump that in 1,000 days of fighting, Russia achieved to conquer 1% of Ukrainian territory.
Yeah,
Russia is not making any progress on the battlefield. For a medium-sized city, Russia is fighting for 18 months, losing hundreds of men, thousands of men, and this city, okay, it has some tactical importance, but it has no strategic win for this war, right? So I think the meeting in Washington was used by Europeans and by Zelensky also to show Trump that Putin is misleading him. Putin is playing this superpower, which Russia is not. Russian GDP is the size of Spain. Russian army cannot conquer even one region of Ukraine. So why give Putin all these concessions?
so but but Trump wants to end the war. So how is he going
Yes.
to achieve it unless he gets
But
Putin?
maybe he will not achieve it. It's Trump doesn't get everything he wants. Maybe, I mean, I understand his good faith, but the thing is that for Ukraine and for all those heads of states that you saw in Washington, France, Germany, UK, Italy, all the G7 countries, Finland, it matters how the war ends. They are not ready to end the war in any way. The same Ukrainian people, they are not ready to lay down the arms and then with no conditions. Of course, let's remember that this war is now going for 10 years. It's not for 3 years. Russians started this war in 2014 when they annexed Crimea. And Ukrainians know that you cannot trust the Russians. They had nearly 200 rounds of negotiations to resolve that first Russia-Ukrainian war. That ended in a bigger war because Russia occupied territory, basically mobilized people into the army and attacked Ukraine. And this will be the same story. If Russia has the right to control Ukraine, it will attack another country. It will attack Europe. It will attack, you know, nobody trusts Putin. The pressure should be put on Putin, not on Ukraine. And that's why Europe stands together to prevent Trump to put pressure on Ukraine. And right now, European countries are willing to buy weapons for Ukraine to defend itself, are willing to increase sanctions on Putin, and they're trying to convince Trump that Putin only understands power and force. He doesn't understand kind heart and these letters that Melania Trump is writing about children. He is abducting children, and you're asking the perpetrator to be kind. I think it misleads the point.
So you don't see the war ending this year.
If Putin, I mean, right now, to be honest, after these two summits and what I see in Russian media and what Lavrov said yesterday again, they are repeating the same maximalist demands. Russians are not making any concessions. They want Ukraine to be neutral state. They want Ukraine to have small army. They don't want Ukraine to be part of the West. They want to dictate and to have veto over Ukrainian sovereignty. You know, millions of Ukrainian people also are dead and injured for not for this. It's the war for independence. Ukrainians understand it. So the only way this war ends if Putin runs out of men and resources to wage this war. Look what is happening inside Russian territory. Every day, Ukrainian drone attacks a Russian oil refinery. No, almost every day. Russia has problems with gasoline right now. There are queues at the pump inside Russia. This is the only way. I don't think Putin will ever play it nice and negotiate in good faith.
And you don't think that summit between Putin and Zelensky is possible?
It's highly unlikely. Why I think it is? Because you see the way Russians right now playing this game. Who in the clear mind would invite the warring parties to come to Moscow? Putin knew that Zelensky cannot go to Moscow. The meeting has to take on neutral territory. Why would Putin meet Zelensky if he considers him illegitimate leader? And he considers Ukraine not a real country. Third, I think even if there is a meeting, let's say he decides to meet only to show to Trump that he wants to have a relationship with America. So he decides, okay, I'm going to please Trump. I'm going to meet with Zelensky. But it will not lead anywhere because, again, I'm pointing back to these Russian demands that they have not changed a iota. For example, they say we disagree that NATO member states put their troops to protect Ukrainian security.
Yeah.
And this will be the dead end because Ukraine is and will be a part of Western military bloc because this is the only way for Ukraine to defend itself from Russia. You see how costly it is to defend on your own. Right now, Ukrainian army is the only army that is fighting Russians. So this meeting, even if it takes place, will result in nothing.
So what if Trump...
Unless well, the only way, and here is unfortunate for India that is buying a lot of Russian oil, the only way that this war may end if really Trump puts secondary sanctions on countries who are buying Russian oil, India, Brazil, China, that will actually raise the price of and risk of buying Russian oil so high that you will be compelled to buy oil somewhere else. You know, oil is a product you can buy anywhere on the market. You don't have to buy it from Russia. So then Russian budget will simply crumble because it's such a big share of oil, and it will have no money to finance the war. Because right now Putin is paying a lot of money for his mercenary soldiers because this is not contract. These are people paid to go and fight. They are not mobilized for like a regular army. He will run out of money to pay for people, and Russians don't want to go and fight in Ukraine because they see where they end up in the Ukrainian fields dead.
And what if President Trump actually attends the meeting? Would that because so far he said that he will let these two leaders meet. But if he sees Putin's continued reluctance to meet Zelensky, what if he has what he calls a trilat and meets them? Without the European leaders being there, can he compel Zelensky to agree to concede some land, some territory to Putin?
But why are you always asking me about Ukraine's concessions? Russia will have to be making concessions. This is a misguided framework. Ukraine is a victim of unprovoked aggression. Russia violated UN Charter. Russia violated over 400 international agreements. The pressure should be put on Putin. And without that pressure, and so far as I told you, we do not see that pressure other than India, who suffered tariffs that includes also sanctions on Russian oil. There has been no pressure put on Putin. Trump thinks Putin is his friend, that he likes him. Putin has no friends. He is the KGB agent that has a mission to restore Russian empire. This is what he has in mind. He will not do anything to please Trump. That's not his goal. His goal is to restore USSR and maybe even the realm of the former Russian Empire. Why should he please Trump? What for?
So the Alaska summit was in your opinion a disaster, a flop.
Well, Alaska summit was Putin's win because Trump rolled him a red carpet, received no concessions from Putin. Trump was demanding ceasefire in Ukraine. Since he became the president, he said, we must have ceasefire and then we talk. Do we have ceasefire? Yesterday, my hometown was bombed 50 kilometers from the Polish border in the west. 26 buildings were damaged, one person dead. The American company all the way near Hungarian border was targeted by a drone. The fire is now going for 2 days. Do we have ceasefire? No. So Putin won in Alaska. He had the red carpet. Now he is telling everybody in the global south, outside of the West, that look, I did nothing wrong. It's Biden's war. He is wanted by the International Criminal Court for abduction of Ukrainian children. Trump shook the hand with the war criminal. Of course, Putin won. And of course, Trump didn't get anything in exchange, because what we hear now in public statements from Russians, there are no concessions like I described.
You said Putin wants to restore Russia to its old glory. The thing is that,
yes,
the man it will be 73 in October. So isn't time running out for him? I mean, are these imperial dreams, not just unworkable? So will he just be satisfied? Will he just be satisfied?
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that, but we have to understand that these imperial dreams live not only in Putin's head. There is a large part of Russian elite, especially military, security, and also economic, that want to see Russia as the superpower, a nuclear state that also controls half of Europe, including Eastern Europe, where they used to be all the way to Czechoslovakia and Eastern Germany, right?
Yeah.
That's why these Nord Stream projects with pipelines that they wanted to sell, they were selling gas to Europe through Eastern Germany. So unfortunately, even if Putin is gone, if Russians are winning in Ukraine, this imperial fantasy will be giving more strength, you see? Because people will think, look, it's working. Yes, we paid a high price. Yes, a lot of Russians died, but it's all worth it. We are now enlarging Russian territory. And I described you Belarus, that they put nuclear weapons in Belarus. So unfortunately, this is why one of the arguments why Russians should lose in Ukraine is this is the only way to kill this imperial dream. So Russians also understand, you know what, this is not working. This is not 19th century, that countries' borders cannot be changed by force, that you have to respect that Ukraine is as sovereign as Portugal. Do Russians tell Portugal what kind of agreements they are making, or do they tell Pakistan what they should or should not do? No, they have no right to do it. In the same way, they have no right to limit and destroy Ukraine. So that's why I think it's a long-term project. It's not, even if there's a ceasefire, Russia will remain a hostile power, and Europe is rearming at high speed. It's too late, but still, if you look at the construction of the defense production facilities, it's very high. This year it's one of the highest because they understand exactly the nature of Russian imperialism and that they have huge appetites.
In your understanding of, has Putin changed since the Ukraine war started? Because when he started the war, he was probably expecting Ukraine to, the war to end in a few weeks. And the way Ukraine has defended the country and fought Russia has been exemplary. So, do you think that in some way Putin has changed his after the war started?
Yes, he changed, I think, more into repressive mode. We see inside Russia, especially repressions increased. Well, let's remember Navalny, who was poisoned and then he died in jail. He was the leading opposition leader. Let's remember another, I mean, that's even before the war, but Nemtsov, who was killed on the bridge,
Yeah.
he was actually the first who was telling that Russia is waging a war against Ukraine when Putin was saying he has nothing to do with it. So Putin's Russia became much more repressive. You cannot call the war. If you deny that Crimea is Russian, you can go to jail. There were several show trials, even for people who were human rights defenders who were helping, for example, identify Ukrainian children in Russia to return them to Ukraine. One woman was put on trial and put into prison. And I think also let's recall the uprising of Prigozhin, the Wagner group leader, against Putin. Let's remember that there are also these groups that have different influence, different towers of Kremlin. And Putin feels threatened, I think, right now from within, because this war is not going his way. He is becoming much more paranoid about his own security. He lived through that experience of somebody challenging him, and Russia is more becoming a police state.
So, but you said that his dreams are shared by others in the Russian establishment.
Yes.
So, if Putin dies
Yes.
tomorrow, who is the person who will carry the torch forward of Russian imperialism?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. There are different groups. Around people who are, there's a group around the big oil and gas companies, Sechin, there's a group around Patrushev, who is in the security, and their children. This will be like a hereditary because Russia has no elections. So the power will pass on to a younger generation who, in a way, I mean, I would give some chance to the change if Russia loses the war, like I said, if Russia suffers a defeat in Ukraine, if it loses, let's say, Crimea, because it's not so complicated to retake Crimea in a military way with modern tools, then these people may change the course. But there is a young elite and this technocratic elite that Putin has brought in with him to power that share the same ideology. And if you look at Russian television, how they brainwash the people, how they teach young children at school, the kind of the military history, the military exercises that they already do, they are preparing Russians to be an aggressive nation.
But you said that Russia has to lose the war in Ukraine. But
Exactly.
but that's not going to happen. In the sense, at best, there will be a sort of a freeze on the territories that Russia
Yeah.
has taken, and so it'll be a
Yeah,
kind.
but yeah.
So would that be construed as
So
a loss for Russia?
yes, I think if Russia is not able to have any say in sovereignty of Ukraine, about the size of Ukrainian army, if there will be an reassurance force stationed in Ukraine, if Ukraine will rearm with a top-notch military kit from the West and its own, if Ukraine continues integration with the European Union and becomes a member of European Union, as you know, it is an accession country. It's a country that European Union said it will be. It will be a member of EU. Then yes, it's a loss for Putin, because remember, like we said at the beginning, he would have lost Ukraine. He doesn't need the village of Pokrovsk or the village of Chasiv Yar, that right now the fighting is going on. No, he needs Kiev. And if all these things happen, yes, he would have lost the war. And if Crimea is not recognized as a legal Russian territory, it's also a loss, because Putin wants the world to say Crimea is Russian. But I don't think anybody is going to do that.
So finally, ma'am, I just want to ask you, where do you see the short term for Ukraine and Russia?
So the short term, both Ukraine and Russia will play Trump's diplomacy game to keep America on their side. What this whole thing is, it's the basically tug of war for Trump, whether Trump will be on Ukraine and Europe's side, or whether Trump will decide that relationship with Russia is more important for America than Ukraine, than helping Ukraine. This is the short term, and we will see all these events and meetings that are exactly about that. It's not so much about finding a resolution to the war in Ukraine. And the second thing, we're going to see the war continuing, because Putin always connects diplomacy and battlefield. He wants to encircle Ukrainian troops in order to put pressure on Zelenskyy at the negotiating table. And Ukrainians know it, and they will keep defense as strong as possible for Russia not to have any success, any measurable success on the battlefield. And then there will be a question of, if the peace talks fail, whether Trump will indeed impose serious sanctions on Russia that will keep tanking Russian economy, and Ukraine will keep mounting its strikes inside Russia to destroy its oil refineries, to destroy military production facilities and airfields. But this is how I see it going.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.